majority of people have joined. Allie, just checking, you can see my screen. Slides are coming through okay?
Yeah, you look good.
Beautiful. All right, let's get into it here. Yeah, thank you all for attending today. So this webinar, we're going to be going through our simplified background check experience within TeamLinkt, powered by JDP. So we got a couple people on the call here today just for some quick introductions. I'm Corey Edington. I lead our partnerships here with TeamLinkt. And then we're also joined by Kirk and Kyle, both on the JDP side. So Kirk, Kyle, if you want to do some quick introductions, that would be great.
Go ahead, Kyle.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for attending this afternoon. My name is Kyle Garner. I lead our sales efforts here at JDP. Have been here at JDP about a decade now, and then working with youth sports organizations for the better part of 8 or 9 years here. So excited to kind of walk everyone through what we've brought to the market today with TeamLinkt, and excited to show everybody what we have to offer.
My name's Kirk Nate. I lead our partnership efforts here at JDP. Been with the company now since early 2015. Been in the space since 2005 and been working with youth sports organizations since 2006. So thanks for having us.
Yeah, awesome. Good stuff, guys. Appreciate you making the time to hop on to this webinar today and share a little bit more information with our audience here. So just to set the context a little bit, why this matters now. So we know that here at TeamLinkt, safe sport is becoming very important. And, when we kind of started looking at this background check piece and how we could help bring a more integrated background check experience to market, one of the first things that came up with a lot of customers was, there is a lot of administrative work that's involved in safe sport compliance, safeguarding, and of course, background checks are a critical component of that. So, just to kind of touch on the importance of this a little bit, we know there's been some survey data coming out that 88% of parents expect that their coaches have completed a criminal background check. So, not only is this an expectation maybe from, the governing body that we work with or some other people above us, but there's also a lot of demand here at the parent level. And we know that, this can create a lot of administrative work for those that are running sports organizations. So, ultimately our mission here at TeamLinkt is how can we save individuals time that are running sports organizations? So this naturally became a big part of that. And yeah, when we saw a lot of people running background checks today, we knew that there was some disconnected systems, kind of some inefficiencies in the process that we felt we could help improve, and then help alleviate some of the liability or risk sports organizations might have if things are slipping through the cracks with that. So, again, as a little bit of an overview of what we're going to cover today in this 30-minute section or 30-minute session, I'm going to turn it over to the JDP crew, and they're going to talk a little bit about safeguarding, what it is and its role in youth sport. And then I'm going to give everybody a little bit of a feature walkthrough. So we're going to see what the integration looks like within TeamLinkt, and then cover some of the screening packages available to you in your sports organization. So yeah, with that, I will flip it over to JDP, and Kirk and Kyle, you can discuss a little bit about your organization and the safeguarding landscape in sport.
Perfect. Thanks, Corey. So for everybody who may not know us, we are kind of a boutique at scale organization. We've been operating in the youth sports space going back to about 2015, 2016 with some of the registration management platforms that have been acquired by some of the other firms in the space. So we have a long history to kind of draw on here. We are 100% US based. Our customer service is 100% US based, excuse me. Highly caffeinated this afternoon. We have our headquarters is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and then we have a secondary office out in Redding, California as well. So we have a team based in those two offices, and then we have remote employees like Kirk and myself kind of scattered all throughout the country here and remote workers here. So we've got a good footprint all across the US. And again, 100% US based customer service. So if you've got to reach out to somebody at JDP, you're going to get somebody on the other end of that email, that phone call that is based here in the States. And then a little bit about who JDP is and why we were founded. Our CEO founded JDP in 2009 as the son of a physician and a teacher. So he founded JDP with the intent on protecting children. And as we've gone on, it's expanded to protecting vulnerable populations of all sorts. But we've really kind of focused on youth sports, K through 12, the last decade here. So we've grown our experience in youth sports. Here in the States, if your kids play soccer, if your kids play baseball, chances are we're doing one of those background checks. We have deep relationships with probably about a dozen NGBs that we work with. We have relationships with Safe Sport. We have relationships with the USOPC. So we have a team that's very well versed and very well connected when it comes to the screening space, the safety space, safeguarding, and kind of ensuring that we understand what's going on in the landscape here. We can go to the next slide here. And then as we kind of look at safeguarding and what safeguarding means, we'll kind of do an ABCs of background screening here, right? So we want to make this digestible for everybody. We know this is not everybody's job. Kirk and I have been doing this day in, day out I've been doing it 10 years. Kirk's been doing it 20 years, but we know this is not what everybody else does on the daily basis. So safeguarding is kind of an aggregation of multiple pieces, right? So this is going to be your risk management policies. Background screening is just going to be one portion of that, right? You have your other policies that are going to be things like your awareness training, your concussion training. If you're in one of the states such as California or Ohio, where we have some of these AED laws coming down the pike, the safeguarding is all of those pieces put together. And background screening is just one of that. And we've come a long way from the days 20 years ago where we're running just a national criminal search, right? And for everybody on the call who may not be aware, we have the U.S. Center for Safe Sport that was established about a decade ago in 2016 or 2017. That was a result of the incidents with Larry Nassar, Jerry Sandusky that bore out the U.S. Center for Safe Sport, whose goal is to protect athletes and ensure the safety of its participants. So as we've gone on, you have the USOPC, the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee. They have taken on the process or the directive of ensuring athlete safety, ensuring all areas of safeguarding are up to par. So what we've seen is enhanced background checks, adding additional due diligences, where we're not just simply running a national criminal search anymore. So as Corey and Allie will kind of show here once we get through and into some of the offerings, we're seeing much more diligent background check processes. And we understand these are pieces that increase budgets, but it's designed to keep athletes safe, especially the kids. But then on the flip side, we're also seeing the piece where you're potentially getting discounts on your insurance policies or having your policies renewed at all as a result of higher diligence or more diligent background check packages. And for those who are in, we'll say the friendly four states sarcastically, California, Florida, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, the fun that comes along with doing background checks in those states where you've got fingerprints, you have child abuse registries. So there's above and beyond diligence that is happening that we're seeing legislated in from the state governments. There we go. So I'll kind of wrap it up there. I forgot what the slides were, so that's on me. But what we're seeing is much more diligence in the background screening space these days. It's simply evolved beyond just that national criminal search. We're seeing state laws come out where it's requiring not only those particular searches, but the sex offender searches. So we're seeing much more focus, not only in states, but from Congress as well. And I'll leave kind of the last piece here. U.S. Soccer is one that's kind of led the way. You had the Sally Yates report that came out a few years ago, and there were 12 points that Sally Yates outlined in her report where U.S. Soccer had to do better. One of those points was a more diligent background screening process. So as Corey and Allie kind of walk through this, and once we get into the packages, we can kind of outline those searches, what's available within those searches.
Perfect. Thank you for covering that really good kind of overview for our audience here of the landscape and how it's evolving. So, yeah, with that, we're going to go through a walkthrough here and show some of the integration in product and kind of what this looks like in this partnership with JDP. So, we're going to go through a little bit about the setup process. Really, there's 3 steps in it. You got to make sure that you have a registration form so that all of your volunteers or coaches that need to be screened are registering through the platform, and then making sure that that account is set up and enabled on the JDP side, and then making sure that those background check packages are added straight into your registration form. So we're going to look at that briefly, and then kind of take you through the other big piece of it, which is tracking the status of those background checks in platform. So with that, I'm going to share my screen, and what we're doing for the demo today is it's not going to be a fully live demo, but what we're going to do is we've actually taken out all the major screens that are involved in this process. So we kind of had to set it up that way just to make sure that we could get real information in there, and making sure to respect the privacy of other individuals. We didn't want to be jumping into looking at real information there that's in the platform today. So I'm going to hop over here. Allie, can you see my screen that's platform now?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that came through clean. All right, so we're going to go through a little bit of the in-product walkthrough here to show you what this looks like. So those of you that are on TeamLinkt today, this will be a very familiar view for you. So I'm just in my registration form section of the platform. So the first thing we're going to need to do is make sure that we have a registration form set up for my coaches or my volunteers that I'm going to be running background checks on. So if you need to set up a new one, again, you can go to the new registration form section and actually go through the steps here required to set up your registration form. Underneath here, where you see who's registering, you can just choose coaches or volunteers. It's not a huge deal. You can assign the background check to either one. It just kind of helps you organize that form and find it in your main view there. So once that form is set up, you'll now see it in my list of registration forms. So I'm going to jump in to this coach one that I've set up. So if you go into edit the form here, you'll see my different groupings within the form. So if I'm kind of organizing these by head coaches or assistant coaches, or however I'm organizing my my registrants through there, I'm just going to click into one of these groups. So if I hit edit here, now I get into the detailed edit view to where I can manage this form. And now where we're going to go to find and add all of our background check packages is under this requirements section. And then you'll see that there's a section under here called compliance, and we have our background check power up in here, powered by JDP, right within the form. So first thing you're going to have to do when you add this is when we click on this enable button, that's really what's going to help us turn this power up on and go through the account setup process with JDP. Depending on your organization, we do have some situations here where if you're a member or if your organization is part of a larger governing body, then this power up might actually already be turned on for you. So if the parent account that you're tied to has already turned on the background check power up, then you'll already see that on there, and the background check package might already be added onto that form. So in that case, it's really simple. You don't have to do anything. You're kind of just ready to go there. But for those of you, when we're turning on the power up, so once I click on enable here, it'll bring me to our power up section in product, where we can kind of learn a little bit more about the background check packages provided by JDP with costing as well. And then if you look in the get started section here, we have instructions on how you can finish the account setup process with JDP. So what you're going to do to turn this on is once you hit enable, we'll collect credit card information. So one thing with our background check services is you will be billed by TeamLinkt directly monthly based on the number of background check screens that you've run. So when you enter in credit card information here, then that'll essentially be the payment method on file that you use to pay for those background checks. So once you enter that in and hit save, power up will be turned on, and then we're now taken to this to our JDP account sign up workflow. So this is where we go through the required information that JDP needs on their side to make sure that they have record of your account. So there's a couple steps here that you'll walk through and provide JDP with that information. So then JDP, I think you guys usually take kind of like a couple of days to get that account confirmed and everything set up. And then once that's all set up, usually I believe Kyle, Kirk, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they receive a welcome email from JDP once that account is confirmed and set up. Is that correct?
Correct. There's a welcome email that'll come out from our team. It'll have just some documentation about JDP, including our W-9, our certificate of insurance if you need that information, some of the sample consent forms that we have built into the platform, user guide. So there's that email that will come out, and then there's a second email that will come out from our platform, which will contain a link for those users who need access to review the checks, where they can go into JDP, set up their own credentials. This is just that user access into JDP, set up a password of your choice, your security questions, and then that will give you access into JDP to review those checks when it's indicated that there's a flag or something requires attention.
Perfect. Yeah. So you'll kind of get that confirmation on the JDP side and all their additional information and resources as well. So now once that account is set up, once we go back into TeamLinkt, you're just going to go back into our registration form. So if we go back to that coach form that I had set up and hit edit, once I pop in here, again, we can see our groups. So if I go into edit my coach group in there, now you can actually see the different packages are available right in there in the form. So you can just click off, I want to run a background check on individuals who submit this form, and then choose what specific package you want to run. And we'll hop into that later to kind of break down the packages a little bit. And then two other pieces of functionality that you have here are, we do allow you the ability to pass on the cost to the coach if you choose. So you can actually input an amount of payment to be collected when that coach submits or that volunteer submits the registration form. And then that payment will go directly to your organization to then kind of offset the cost of that background check. And then the other piece we have here is this completed date functionality. So this is to support organizations that might run programming in both the spring and the fall time, but maybe we have a policy that we screen our coaches annually. You can basically select a date here. So if anybody submits this registration form and we see that like they've already completed a check after that date that I selected, then they won't be prompted to complete another one. So the example use case here would be, say I set this to January 1st of 2026. As long as my coach has completed their background check after January 1st, then that will be a valid check. So it kind of helps with some of that administrative workload for organizations that have 2 programs per year and maybe a combination of new and returning coaches for their fall programming. So once we have this all added, I'm going to hit save here. And now it's on my registration form. So now it really functions the same way all other registration forms do within the TeamLinkt platform. So, once it's published, then I can share this form out with all of my volunteers and coaches. You'll see my coach registration here. This is just the public view of the TeamLinkt registration form. And then once they hit get started, they'll go through and submit all the information that you've put on that registration form. Now we're going to look at some of the tracking piece that we have tied in here in platform. So what you're going to do here, or where you're going to find this, is under our members section and compliance. We have this table to help track status of each of those checks. So you can see we have a list of volunteers or coaches in this table that have submitted that form. And a couple of big things to look at here is we have these status indicators that are automatically updated through our integration with the JDP platform. So you'll see somebody who's in a pending status is essentially a coach who has submitted that form, but we're still waiting on them to complete that pre-screening questionnaire. So JDP is going to send them an email every 24 hours until they basically click the link to complete that pre-screening questionnaire. Once they've completed that questionnaire, it's going to flip to this in review state. That tells us that JDP is now in the process of completing the background check. And then we kind of have two indicators. So a past indicator saying that that check came back and didn't return any records of criminal history. And then the failed indicator, which will say that, something came up when we did that check. And then a couple other pieces of functionality to call out on this table is when we hit this edit button here, we can actually see the more detailed breakdown of the check that was run on that individual coach. And then we can also hit the view results table to view results button to take us to that completed PDF that actually is the result returned by JDP or their final background check report. And then if they are in this failed status, then the other piece of functionality we have here is when we hit edit, we can choose set as cleared. And then when we choose set as cleared based on, those results that we reviewed, we're kind of indicating, okay, we know that, there was maybe some results that were returned as part of this background screen, but we deem this person fit to coach or fit to volunteer with our organization. So we're going to set their status as clear, just as an indication that we've actually reviewed that. And then the last piece of functionality here is just this export button. So the information in this table, if we do need to get it out of the system, we can easily export that into a PDF. So that is a walkthrough of how it looks in platform. And now I'm going to jump back to the slides and I will turn it back to JDP so we can look or speak about some of the packages and which ones might make the most sense for your organization.
Thanks, Corey. Yeah, and
Yeah, no worries.
What we sought to do with Corey and the TeamLinkt team is really kind of give three standard options that we see a lot of organizations move forward with. And we wanted to create options for every budget as well. So we have everything from the Pro package here up to the Hall of Fame. The Pro is, for those of you who may be in those fabulous 4 states, California, Florida, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, where you have these separate state requirements, Pro package may be an option to add on as a complementary search to those requirements, right? So the Pro package, we're going to look at national criminal records. Our national criminal search encompasses 900 million, almost a billion records from across thousands of jurisdictions across the country. It's going to include the National Sex Offender Registry search as well, so you're getting that data. Then as we move up to that All-Star package, that's when we start doing that additional due diligence where we're going to go look at the county where your folks live, right? We're going to look at that county where the individual lives. And with background screening, there's not a silver bullet that's going to catch everything. The analogy I always use is you can think of it like a casting net when you're fishing or when you're trying to catch bait. As you add more diligence, as you add these different levels of county search, you're just going to shrink the holes in the net in an effort to catch more records, to catch more fish, to nab more folks who are maybe trying to game the system. And then we jump to that Hall of Fame package. That's when we really start doing that due diligence, especially as we kind of still coming out of the pandemic era where we've seen a lot of folks moving from state to state, and they may have moved from California to Tennessee or Florida, wherever it may be, right? We've seen a lot of transient folks moving across the country. With this Hall of Fame package, we're going to look at all the counties where that individual has lived over the last 7 years. So this is going to be our most diligent package. And this is the one we see a lot of organizations do in the not only the for-profit world, but this is where we start to see some of those national governing bodies adding these specific searches as well. So it is an additional cost, but it is going to create that additional due diligence. And then it also may make you eligible for additional discounts on your insurance policies as well with your carriers. So just a couple of good things there as we move forward here and some of the packages that are available there. And then as far as choosing that right level of package for your organization, again, it's going to depend on any other requirements you have as well, right? If you're in California, Florida, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, maybe the pro package makes sense for you. But if you have folks that could be chaperoning kids unsupervised, if they're going to have the potential to be with those kids on overnight trips, where they're not going to have contact, you're not going to have other folks with eyes on volunteers, coaches, whatever it may be at the same time, you may want to look to do an additional level of due diligence. We're moving past those days of, and sorry, Kirk. Hey, I know Kirk. Kirk's lived in this town for 30 years. Kirk's a great guy. Do you really know Kirk, though? He could have moved here from somewhere else, and we don't really know who Kirk is. So that's why we see this additional due diligence being added because people are constantly moving, making those changes, and you don't truly know who that individual is. As far as your frequency of screening goes, that's going to be an organizational decision you have to make. And again, it's going to be driven by what your budgets may be. It's going to be driven potentially by your insurance carriers and just how often you want to keep tabs on your folks as well. Because with background screening, it's just a snapshot of everything that has occurred to that date when you run the background check. So with us, there's not any ongoing monitoring or anything like that where we're sending updates. We're just running background checks, giving you a snapshot of everything that has occurred to that date. And then lastly, if you need to match what your national governing body is doing, right? Do you tree up to US soccer? Do you tree up to US youth soccer? Do you tree up to US club? Do you tree up to Little League? USA baseball, whether it's your NGB or your NMO, whatever those requirements may be. And then I know I feel like a broken record, but we're also seeing a lot of insurance companies driving those requirements on the background screening packages as well.
Perfect. I know we're getting close to time here, so I'm just gonna go to kind of like our last slide and we'll hop back into the Q&A. If anybody has to leave, definitely still post your question in the chat. We will get to it. And then again, this recording will be distributed, so then you can grab it then. But just to wrap it up here, so, if you're wanting to get started with this, the background check is available for all of our US organization customers and platform today. So if you go in there and set up that form or go to your Power Up section, you'll see the prompt there to set up your account with JDP. So you can get started with this in platform today. And then if you're looking for some additional support, you can go to help.teamlinkt.com, and we have a pretty detailed help article in there as well for how you can get started with this. So with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen, and then we'll jump into the Q&A section. So I think, Ali, if you kind of want to start from the top and then read through some of the questions, we can work our way through the list.
Sure. So first question is the monthly billing per number of background checks sent to the league or to individual coaches?
The billing is monthly checks. So it's always billed to the league. So if a league runs, say you have that registration form set up, you have the $8 per screen package on there, then if 10 coaches submit that registration form and we complete 10 screens, then your bill will be $80 a month. The league will be charged for that. And then that per coach charge is essentially if you wanted to collect $8 from each individual coach to help offset that cost, then that money would come straight from the coach into your league's bank account based on your Stripe connection.
And then second part to that question is, if our league is only 3 to 4 months, is there a way to set up the monthly billing for just that time frame?
Right now it's set up to just bill monthly. So I guess if you're running background checks over that 3 to 4 month period, then just whichever new ones come up in that month, you would be billed automatically. But definitely, reach out to your TeamLinkt account rep if there's any issues or anything like that with the billing. Because we do have some flexibility there and other avenues we can look at.
Okay, and then is this system compatible with Babe Ruth League baseball and softball leagues, which use Sports Engine?
So
I think, yeah,
we,
I'll turn that over to
yeah,
you
we
guys.
we have to plead. I don't know if plead the fifth is the right term. I don't know. Think that's the right one, but we can't say whether that's acceptable or not. We don't work with Babe Ruth transparently, so that would be kind of something for them. A question for the Babe Ruth team, whether you have an account manager or a compliance person or customer service over there. That would be something that you would have to ask specifically of the folks at Babe Ruth if they're accepting of another company's background check.
Thank you. And then they said, did you say that California has additional requirements outside of what you can offer here?
Correct. Correct. In California, there's a law that was passed or updated a few years ago. I think it was previously around 30 hours if you were going to be participating or involved with youth sports, 30 to 32 hours a month, you were supposed to go through a fingerprint. They removed that hourly language, and now everybody that is participating is supposed to go through a fingerprint through the California Department of Justice. If needed, we can find the statutes and send that to Corey and Allie. And then Corey, if you guys want to distribute that or kind of have that as an FAQ document, we can make it available for your folks.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. And do you know, Kyle, is that like when they get fingerprinted, is that something they're just required to do once and then the individual kind of has that on file and they can provide it to their
Yeah.
sports organization, or is that like a recurring requirement?
So it's my understanding the organization who requests it, this is where the fingerprint checks are a little bit different than what we offer. With California and the fingerprinting check, there are updates that are pushed back to the requesting organization. So I think Stephen, your organization, if you request a background check for Kirk through the DOJ, you're going to receive any subsequent updates through that if Kirk was to get arrested or anything like that, if that tracks. But
Mm.
lost my train of thought there. But yeah, you would see those updates and then got my train of thought back. You only have to go through it once as the individual. So you would just go through it and then you can furnish, I think what kind of happens is you can share that result with any other organizations in the state of California as well.
Right. Does the top tier service comply with NCSI National Center for Safety Initiatives?
Oh man, that's a dirty word around these parts. They're a direct competitor of ours.
Okay.
So it's one of those things we can't say if it kind of complies with it. They're a top organization, right? They're a great organization. They do a lot of work with a lot of youth sports organizations, a lot of NGBs. We can't really say if it complies or not. What we've offered is comparable to what they're offering. There may be some other offerings that NCSI is offering too. And if you need those, we can work with Corey and Allie and the team to make those searches available. But what we've put together is comparable, I would say, Chris, to your question.
Hey, does everyone who has access to club registration set up, are they able to see the background check information as well?
I believe, yeah, any administrator, right, Ali, on the platform, it's basically who can access that compliance table under the members section to see information, which I believe is
Yeah,
any account administrator.
you can edit your account admin permissions. So if there's someone that you only want to have access to certain features and protect information like this or financials or other things, you can limit the permissions of certain administrators. And then last question in here right now is, to clarify, the billing is based on the number of checks completed in a given month, not an ongoing monthly fee.
Correct. Yeah, correct.
Oh, one more here. I'm in Pennsylvania. Is there a way for coaches to upload their AC-15 results into TeamLinkt so all clearances are located in one place? There's a second part to the question. It's we currently run all of our clearances through USA Hockey. Is there any reason for us to switch to JDP if we're already using them?
I guess the one piece on tracking other documentation, there is some tooling there in that compliance section where you can add other requirements outside of the JDP background check. Of course, it's handled a little bit differently in that it's more so just a document collection and tracking mechanism more than it is actually completing the service. So yeah, there is the ability to collect other documents there within that process. Um, in terms of like comparison to USA Hockey, I know USA Hockey and some of the other NGBs do have a lot of, I guess, services built right into their membership offering that cover some of this. I'm not sure, Kyle, for some of those ones, if you have any insight on that.
Yeah, we're in the midst of creating a solution to process the PA child abuse registry. But Karen, to answer your question, it would be an organizational decision if you want to do anything complementary with JDP outside of PA. You know, that pro package at $8 would probably be the best bet if you did want to do it. But, you know, we understand that going through this and you're trying to get volunteers in the door, right? So we're trying to remove the friction from them. But if you want to add something outside of Pennsylvania, you could look at the pro package, but it wouldn't put you out of compliance in any way with either the state of Pennsylvania or USA Hockey if you didn't elect to use JDP.
Yeah, that's a good point, Kyle. There might be a complementary piece there for anybody in your organization. Maybe you're screening volunteers that are not a coach, like they're in some other role and they're not necessarily like a paid member of USA Hockey. So there might be a use case there to do like some supplementary screening there that USA Hockey isn't providing.
Yep. Yep.
And then is the background check nationwide as far as checking actions by the one being looked at?
It is. All three levels of background check have that national criminal and national sex offender record search. So we're looking at all the offender registries from across the country, all 50 states, outlying US territories. We're looking at that as far as the sex offender registries go. And then the national criminal search, it's an aggregation of thousands of jurisdictions across the country, you know, counties, townships, municipalities. And then as far as where we get the records from, it's going to be arrest records, departments of correction, administrative offices of courts, counties. So lots of different sources from across the country are included in that national criminal search.
Okay, that's all the questions we have in here right now.
Perfect. Then yeah, I know we're kind of at 45 minutes or almost 41 minutes past the hour here. So I think, with that, we'll wrap it up here. But yeah, thank you everybody for attending. Like I mentioned, we'll distribute this recording so everybody has it if you need to reference back to it. And of course, again, as I mentioned, you can either reach out to your TeamLinkt rep or go to help.teamlinkt.com for support. Of course, TeamLinkt, we can help with some of the integration pieces, but anything, specific to figuring out what background check package is best, what requirements it meets, that sort of thing. We have lines of communication here to flip that to Kyle and Kirk and their team to make sure that they can get you to answers to those questions, as that's their area of expertise. So yeah, thanks a lot for everybody attending, and we will call that a wrap.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.